bang.
Hi, I'm Kirsta Teague. Welcome to Studio Q. Studio Q, bonjour.
Hi, I'm Ron Tite. I feel like Hal Johnson and Joanne McLeod for Body Break out here on our skates. Coming up this week on Studio Q, we have stories on house hunting in the ghetto, Gael interviews, and an interview with a former Kingston MP, Flora MacDonald. But I'm gonna go for skate.
Okay.
Okay.
But first, we're going to take a look at a little bit of student politics. Sharie Ross and Thea have been talking with the two teams running for AMS executive positions, the elections for which will be held on the 16th and 17th of this month. So, let's hear what those candidates have to say.
It's election time again, and Queen's students are summoned to exercise their democratic rights to elect the leaders of the AMS executive. What are the issues and what should we vote for? Should we go for Spice and vote for Phillips, Wilson and Meyerson? And what exactly is Spice? This week, the team has been campaigning vigorously, addressing different assembly meetings, setting up campaign booths at lunch lines and handing out pamphlets that outline their Spice theory. Todd Meyerson, candidate for Vice President of University Affairs, explains.
That stands for a student population that's informed, concerned, and effective.
What exactly does the Spice theory entail? Unlike the usual jargon of AMS candidates, the Phillips team have turned their focus around. Rather than advocating the anthemic accessibility and diversity platforms, the candidates have put the onus on themselves to approach the students rather than just designate longer business hours.
Accessibility kind of sounds limiting to us.
In their Spice campaign, the team has addressed matters of fiscal responsibility, gender and race. But what about controversial matters like homophobia? The recent BART literature has shown that these feelings do exist on campus. Tim Wilson, vying for Vice President of Operations, adhered to the backbone of their platform, saying that they wanted to educate people and stop the maturation of homophobic sentiments.
We like to change that and speak out before anyone does approach us.
Catherine Phillips, their candidate for AMS President, believes that there is a need for stronger leadership at the AMS assembly meetings. The team strives to eliminate the present forum for senseless debate.
What we want to do is just to be able to facilitate and to encourage people to realize the dimensions of an issue. I mean, there's always more than one side, and so
the team has made several promises to spend student resources more efficiently, hire competent managers so nothing loses money, and reach out to the students. Phillips, Wilson and Meyerson will be pumping hands throughout election time as they aim to win this competitive race. Thea Andrews met up with their opposition, Emerson, Purvis and Barker.
The second team, Emerson, Purvis and Barker, is stressing that their experience within the AMS would make them more effective in running the complex organization. Heading the team is Catherine Emerson, a third-year history student whose experience includes involvement with the Senate Committee on Student Aid and Scholarships, the environmental group QSEN, ASIS Orientation, and the AMS Academic Affairs Commission. One of her objectives as president is to increase student representation at a provincial level.
I mean, Queen students are crying for a new voice. They showed that when they pulled out with over 80% voting to get out of the Ontario Federation of Students. Just a group of students going in and saying, we want this, this, and this, or we don't like this, is not going to do the job. You have to know how to talk to them. You have to know how they work and how you can actually get them to listen to you, which I think I've had a good understanding of what needs to be done.
Jamie Purvis, candidate for Vice President of Operations, is a fourth-year politics student who feels his experience as an assistant manager of Alfie's has prepared him to deal with the inner workings of the AMS.
Has really given me some insight as to budgeting and how to save money and run a business efficiently, and I think that that's what the AMS needs.
He sees the need for increased efficiency in student services, such as the rapidly expanding walk-home service.
And I mean, I know that there are those of you who waited for a walk home for, for 20 to 30 minutes.
Dominique Barker, running for Vice President of University Affairs, brings the seldom-seen face of the engineering faculty to the AMS elections. One of her goals is to improve the quality of education at Queen's, a tall order in a time of underfunding.
I think it's pathetic that the Engineering Society, the students themselves, have to put out their own student evaluations to students and have to do it themselves. It's time that we use our voice. We should never underestimate the student voice, and I think that has been done in the past. And I think it's time that we say, look, we want our education to be better.
This team is placing a lot of emphasis on words like diversity and representation, election promises that many students tend to see as campaign rhetoric. The team insists, however, that if elected, they will make concrete changes.
One of the things that's key to us is diversity, and I mean it's a big scapegoat word, but getting as many different people and different backgrounds and different ideas and different knowledges into the AMS will only make it more effective.
The hot question, I guess, is how to get more diversity in the AMS. Instead of just putting advertisements in just the regular newspapers, all you have to do is go, it seems pretty simple to go out and ask people specifically, just say, hey, do you want to get involved?
For Studio Q, I'm Thea Andrews reporting.
Well, if any of you are like me and in 4th year, you probably had some first-year students calling your house saying, hi, you don't know me, but are you moving out of your house next year? Yes, it's house hunting time yet again here in Kingston. And Greg Warman followed a group of first-year students around, and he's got more.
Paula, Grace, Heather, and Steve have spent the last month doing this daily. They are third-year students searching for the perfect place to call home for their final year at Queen's.
Mostly just a big pain. Like, it's time-consuming when, especially in a time when you don't have, well, a lot of free time to burn.
We hate it. It's stressful.
Not everyone agrees on the most important attributes their new home must have.
I'd like to live in a good location this year. You know, pretty much close to everything I need.
We just want to, like, some place that's not too far away, but, like, big rooms and just nicer than what we have now.
And like most nights, the group is heading into the ghetto to see if they can find the home that has eluded them thus far. Although the house hunting crunch will invariably hit every student this year, fortunately there are services on campus to facilitate everyone's search. The Queen's Housing Service at 169 University Avenue acts as a liaison between students and landlords by printing lists of all homes available in the area. As well, the Queen's Housing Service conducts the annual housing lottery, which provides students with a chance, albeit slim, to enjoy the luxury of a near-campus Queen's house. In addition, the Town Gown Service, which is located in the John Deutsch University Center, offers free advice to students on what they must do when looking for a home. Kate Phillips, the town gown coordinator, believes that choosing your housemates carefully is extremely important.
Very good friend. Also, the people with whom you live should really be considered business associates, because this is a business proposition that you are going into.
She also has advice on what you should check when looking at a house.
Be sure that everything works in the bathroom. Open the oven door. The inside of the oven should be a square box, and it should be clean. Refrigerators can look very new and clean and everything from the outside. When you start looking at the place, realize that what you see is what you get, 9 times out of 10.
Unfortunately, the group decided that this was not the home for them, and so the search continues. For Studio Q, I'm Greg Warman.
Yes, hey, what's on there this week? Alfie's. Thursday, you can catch the band and then some. Friday is an Arts 94 Love Smoker, followed Saturday by an Arts 93 Smoker. Don't forget Monday, free pool. At AJ's, appearing Thursday to Friday are the Rhinos. And on Saturday, Juice will rock the house. And on Wednesday, you can catch Queen's Own, the Price Poets. Down at the Toucan, yes. Thursday, you can look for The Reckoning. And Friday, you can see Change of Heart. And in case you missed them before, the band and then some will be playing Saturday night. Don't forget, every Monday night, Joy. At the Shot, you will not want to miss the Shot's Valentine's Day Nuts and Bolts Bash. And the Queen's Marketing Association hosts the Quaker Advertising Competition. There's an info session Saturday the 13th.
high school to university can be a very difficult one for some. Frosh Week especially can be highly stressful if you've never left home before, or if you have very few friends at Queen's. But then again, on the same note, Frosh Week can be very exciting because you get to meet new friends and check out your new university. It is the job of the Gaels to make sure arts and science Frosh start off their university career on a positive note. Kathy Barnes examines the selection process for these ambassadors of Queen's.
Frosh Week is one of the most beloved traditions at Queen's. Therefore, it is important that the orientation leaders are carefully chosen, a process that began earlier this week.
Absolutely fantastic.
Andrea Whiting is Orientation 93's head Gael, and along with her committee, she has the difficult task of choosing next year's Gaels.
Okay, we're looking for someone who's really responsible and enthusiastic, aware, and sensitive to all the issues on campus.
Queen's College, we are where we want to get, soiled as they are by the battle and the race.
This year we're really stressing academics, and we're implementing pre-registration into our week this year, and so that will happen in the summertime. And we're also having a lot of new changes to our social events, and we're building on what Orientation 92 did for a best year yet.
The interview consisted of questions from the committee to determine the awareness, responsibility, and spirit of the applicant. Naturally, this is important, but the highlight of the interviews were the creative stunts or songs that were prepared for the committee.
You can hear the Gaels a rumble. Ooh, on Gawa, we got the power. Ooh, on Gawa, we got the power.
Well, I don't give a heck, don't want to be a freck. And I'd rather chew on moss than be a commie boss. And I'd rather get a rash than be some lousy trash. 'Cause I just want to be a Gael. Guitar solo.
As well, virtually all applicants wore highly spirited costumes, and most painted their faces and bodies and sported virtually every piece of Queen's apparel they own, in hopes of impressing the panel with their spirit and creativity.
If I'm not a Gael, then I'll puke right in a pail. That's it.
It was obvious all applicants desperately wanted to become a Gael, and everyone had a good answer as to why.
Well, Frosh Week was just awesome for us, and we just want to make it awesome for all the other Frosh. How about you?
Totally just want to have another excellent year.
Because I want my Frosh to have the best time of their lives like I did last year. Gael. Frosh Week, come and me wanna be Gael.
Naturally, this year's Gael interviews produced an array of goofy costumes and outrageous stunts. And although everyone can't get chosen, one thing's for certain. Everyone had a great time preparing their interviews, and next year's Frosh are guaranteed to have an excellent group of Gaels. Reporting for Studio Q, I'm Kathy Barnes.
Well, once again, Valentine's Day is almost here, and Cupid is pulling back his bow and getting ready to let his arrow of love fly over Kingston this Sunday. And it looks like I'm going to be sitting home alone again, listening to Red Sovine records and waiting for Ma to call. But enough about me. Inquiring minds want to know what you're doing with your sweetheart this Valentine's Day. So let's hit the street and find out, shall we?
What are you doing with your sweetheart?
Well, I guess I'm finding one for that matter.
I don't have a sweetheart.
You don't have a sweetheart?
I don't have a sweetheart, Kat.
I don't have a Valentine's Day sweetheart, actually.
I don't have a sweetheart.
My God, somebody's got to have a sweetheart.
I think I'll just cook supper for her.
That's a tough question.
Maybe a peck on the cheek.
Well, I'll try to be innovative.
I imagine I'll give her a Valentine.
I can't answer that.
I'm going to take her to the show.
Then I'll surprise her when she comes home and make her dinner.
Fantastic.
Candlelight, yeah.
We're going to go out to dinner, and then go to a movie, and then have sex all night long.
Nope. Old married people don't do nothing like that no more.
The Read Week is coming up, and I've got to save the funds. I think the 425 movie action would be in order.
No. No, I don't.
Not much. She's down at a different school, so.
Boring.
Okay, what I'm doing is I'm sending her flowers. We're just going out to dinner.
We both agreed we're just going to give cards.
No money this year.
Boring.
No, we don't have money. I'm married. Check that out. Oh, so I had to pay for a wedding.
Chocolate?
I bought this big thing of bubble bath, and I'm going to have a bubble bath with my honey, and we're going to have champagne and roses in the bathroom. It's going to be pretty great.
Nice long romantic sappy poetry. 20 verses.
Actually, I'm writing a poem. In the process. Working on it right now.
Roses are red, violets are blue. On Valentine's Day, I'll be home being blue.
Actually, I have my own girlfriend, and I know what I'm doing. I'm going to get her off that damn island. It's Ginger, and Gilligan's Island. Every year, I promise to get her the hell away from those guys. This year, I got it all worked out. I got a little heart-shaped canoe, and I go over there and rescue her. Get away from me. Oh, yeah.
For Studio Q, this is Kevin Bryenton reporting.
I have your phone number.
No way.
Queen's Model United Nations held their annual event this past weekend. Students played the part of diplomats from countries around the world in an effort to understand global politics. Nicholas Johnson has more with that story.
We've been up all night because, yes, yet again, the United States have sent cruise missiles into our country.
The Charter of the United Nations talks about peace, tolerance, and friendly relations. But a very different UN emerged last weekend during Queen's Model United Nations conference. There was a good mix of funny and serious issues, events, and people, and suggestions for peace ranged from overhauling NATO to broadcasting Simpsons reruns to every country in the world. Despite some pushy delegates and several technical crises, Christine Lonsdale, Secretary General of Queen's Model UN, had an excellent perspective on what it was all about.
And sitting up at the stage here and looking out at those 300 people who were all there and who were interested in participating, that for me was the most wonderful feeling of this conference.
Two world-famous men gave speeches over the weekend. Major General Louis Mackenzie, commander of UN forces in Sarajevo last summer, spoke at the opening ceremonies. He talked about the role of the UN in Yugoslavia and Somalia and the role it might play in the future. At the dinner and dance on Saturday night, Dr. Maurice Strong addressed the delegates. He was the Secretary General of last summer's UN Conference on the Environment and Human Development, the Rio Earth Summit.
Events like this that are designed to educate people, particularly young people, about the UN are things that I feel I should support whenever I can.
Cooperation, compromise, and bargaining were essential skills as delegates tried to coordinate their common interests and win others over to their side. The goal is to get the support of as many countries as possible in order to pass resolutions based on shared objectives. Some delegates played their roles incredibly seriously, especially when they had the chance to caucus with other countries. High-power politics in action.
It's going to take forever. If we're going to try and accomplish something right here and right now, we're going to have to try and work through 40-40-20.
That is a very fair question. I would pose the question back to you. How have we come this far? Oh my God. Through the consistent efforts and lobbying and coordination networking of delegates like yourself, myself, and everyone else here.
Next, whip out the notebook PC to quickly draft a resolution.
Yes, okay, this is good. The members of which shall be
some delegates were extremely serious. Others, well, not always.
We would like to express outrage that Papa Smurf and not Snoopy, who is politically correct, was recognized.
Snoopy notwithstanding, the conference wrapped up with lots of awards and thank yous when all the hard work pays off. Two Queen students, Joel Davison Harden and Xavier Furtado, were recognized as the overall top delegates of the weekend. As for the rest of the delegates, well, keep your eyes on Geneva. For Studio Q and not reporting from UN headquarters in New York, I'm Nicholas Johnson.
In celebration of Valentine's Day, the Birth Control Center sold condom roses in the JDUC all week to promote safer sex. The roses appeared to be a pretty popular gift for sweethearts. For those who don't know it, this month is Black History Month. The Queen's African Students Association set up an information table in the Lower Cayley this week, playing music and displaying some African artwork. The association is gearing up for one of the highlights of the month, Culture Night, taking place on Saturday at Grant Hall. Studio Q will have highlights of this event next week. The Queen's Southeast Asian Club celebrated its Culture Night last Saturday night in the Skylight Dining Room. Various cultural dances and skits were performed by Japanese, Chinese, and Vietnamese students. All the proceeds from the night went to charity. Students participated in the Queen's Engineering Competition on Tuesday. Displays were set up in Grant Hall so that the public could get information on some of the great new technology being developed by Queen students. Competition was stiff between projects involving paper recycling to the construction of a solar car. The event was a reminder that engineering research and innovation are alive and well here on campus. Although you would think Kingston was not the place for a rave party, believe it or not, it was. This phenomena that has been recently gripping big cities was here. Jeff MacAvoie not only located the rave party, but he attended it, and he brings us this report.
It's hard to imagine a more unlikely location for Kingston's Underground to meet, but this is exactly where it happened on Saturday night. N-Space Productions held Kingston's second rave, and people from all sorts came out of the woodworks. Where were we?
A rave is a secret dance party held usually in warehouses. Details such as to its location are revealed only hours before. By calling the N-Space hotline or dropping by Zach Records, rave seekers were able to pick up their tickets. Then all they had to do was get inside.
Well, basically, a rave, as you've probably seen in the footage, is supposed to be a really visual, musical experience. Now, we like to think that it's kind of an alternative for a club or a bar or something like that, because we're here, the music and the atmosphere is supposed to be the scene, basically enjoying the dancing, kind of, I guess, the euphoric kind of feeling. And really, it's not, the purpose here isn't to get drunk. That's basically, well, I mean, for one, there's not like a licensed bar here in a way. So, I mean, that's one clear way to differentiate.
Later, we spoke to chief organizer DJ Rave and asked him what he felt the future for the Kingston rave scene was.
Considering us, we're supposedly supposed to be graduating this year, I don't expect too many. There could be LF3. We're hoping to do a real rave. This is not too real in the sense that it's not in a warehouse, I suppose. It's a true rave experience. So we're hoping to get a warehouse for LF3. And our plans for LF4 could include Wolf Island, the first, one of the first Kingston outdoor raves.
And in true rave style, a smart bar was in operation all night long. The non-alcoholic drinks served were vitamin-enhanced, which gave the dancers the strength to go on all night long. Well, we didn't get a chance to stay until the end, but we did get a good taste of a Kingston rave. And as to the location, well, it seemed to work out just fine, but we're waiting for DJ Rave's next rave, which he promises will be in a warehouse. Until then, I'm Jeff MacAvoie reporting for Studio Q.
And a busy weekend in sports. The women's water polo team is tops in the land. Or make that the pool. They took first place in their division at the OW Championship held this weekend right here at Queens. 3 Queens players made the All-Star team: Heather Gael, Martha Wyatt, and Sheena Majewski. Sheena was also the game MVP for the final. Final standing saw McMaster take second place, with Carleton finishing third after beating Toronto. And Coach Don Duffy was named the Coach of the Year. Congratulations, Duff, and to the rest of the team. On the rink, the women's hockey team lost to U of T 3-2. The men's team beat RMC 9-0 in the annual Carl Harris Cup last Wednesday night. That's the most one-sided score in the match's history. This showdown got us started in 1886, making it the world's oldest hockey rivalry. Saturday night, they took another game from Laurentian, winning 7-3. This weekend, the team finds itself battling for their first playoff spot in several years. Wednesday night, the synchronized swimming team showed off their routines. They'll head into a competition this weekend at the OW Championships in Toronto. This performance gave them one more chance to practice as well as to perform for their fellow students. And the women's basketball team are within 3 points from their first ever top 10 ranking. They took one game from Ryerson Friday night, but lost a heartbreaker to U of T on Saturday. Toronto broke a tie in the last few seconds of play, going on to beat Queens 60-58. This year's Brockington visitor was Flora MacDonald. A political success, she offered an interesting and informative perspective on a variety of issues. With more, here's Jen Mondoux.
Flora MacDonald has been a busy person since her days on Parliament Hill with her extensive traveling throughout the Third World. But she took a break from her globe-trotting this week to come home to Kingston. MacDonald has a strong attachment to Queens and the area. Not only did she work here at the politics department in the late 60s, but she also served as MP for Kingston and the Islands from 1972 until 1988. MacDonald's list of credentials spans much further. She was in the Tory cabinet as Minister of External Affairs, then Employment and Immigration, and finally, Communications. But as MacDonald explains, it was challenging to penetrate the male-dominated circle.
You'd be the only woman in, say, a NATO meeting. And people would say, but, you know, is this what Canada is sending? It's interesting to me because when the next NATO meeting takes place, both our Secretary of State for External Affairs and our Minister of National Defense will be women. And, you know, it's still odd to have one woman there. To have two, it'll be a creative revolution almost inside of NATO.
MacDonald's address Monday night was entitled, "Am I My Sister's Keeper?" Speaking to a crowd of 80 or so members of the Queen's community, MacDonald stressed that the UN's policy on refugees needs to be overhauled from its original post-World War II intentions. She feels that the real tragedy lies with the 40 or so million of those internally displaced due to civil war and famine who have no chance of reaching our shores because of the strict limits of the UN's 1951 definition of refugee.
The mandate of the United Nations and of its agencies was set in 1945. And the world of 1945 was an entirely different world from the world of today.
MacDonald feels that along with other countries of the North, Canada, as a nation held in high prestige for its work in third world development, must continue to assume a leadership role despite its own increasingly difficult domestic and economic problems.
They simply now are turning in on themselves and dealing with the problems of recession and forgetting that those problems will be much greater if we don't tackle the basic root causes now.
Flora MacDonald demonstrated in her trip to Queens this week that she's clearly dedicated not only to her causes in the third world, but also to us here in Kingston. She heads back to Ottawa tonight and is already planning for trips to Costa Rica and Nicaragua in July. For Studio Q, this is Jen Mondoux reporting.
Well, I guess that's it for another edition of Studio Q. Don't forget, it's Valentine's Day coming. Are you going to take your sweetie out?
Bring your sweetie out skating.
Are you going to bring your sweetie out for a skate?
I don't have a sweetie. I'll just come skating solo.
Okay, yeah, right. We'll be here skating solo. And don't forget to vote.
Yeah, don't forget to vote on the 16th and 17th.
Vote Tite Teague.
Yeah, Ron. Oh, dear.
And I guess we'll see you next week. Same time. I'm Ron Tite.
I'm Kirsta Teague.
See ya. Shall we waltz?
Yeah, we've been reenacting the scenes from Cutting Edge, learning to waltz. You know, Ron's been wiping out, and I've been reminding you, stupid.
Stupid.
Okay.
See ya.
Studio Q, Queen's weekly television show, is brought to you courtesy of Cablenet 13 and the Queen's Alma Mater Society. Tune in each week, Thursdays at 6 and Fridays at 4:30 on Cablenet 13.
Thank you.